Hey everyone, welcome back to JR Pro Shot Vids. Today we're going to talk about how to increase your rev rate. So for our video today, we have a one-hander and a two-hander. For our one-hander, we have Jungo, and for two-handers, we have Jimoo. So for each style, we're going to break down the release and teach you how to increase that rev rate. For two-handed bowlers, skip ahead to the timestamp below. All right, Jung, let's get to it. Grab a bowling ball. So we get a lot of questions in the pro shop all the time. New bowlers, experienced bowlers, they all want to learn how to either hook the ball or increase their rev rate. So the main components for trying to hook a bowling ball are keeping our hand underneath the bowling ball, rotating our hand around that bowling ball, and making sure our thumb comes out before the fingers. The longer the time between the thumb coming out and the fingers rolling through it, the more rev rate we can create. So that being said, why don't we get Jungo to do a couple drills and we'll show you what that looks like. So for this first shot, keep an eye on Jungo's hand. Notice where his fingers are in relation to the equator of the bowling ball. So a lot of bowlers will have the tendency to break the wrist. Now we want a strong wrist position. This gives us the most potential to hook that ball. So this is something that's really difficult to feel. A good idea would be to set up a camera behind you and take a look and pause it and take a look at where your fingers are on the point of release. Are they underneath the ball or more on top of the ball? So the second part of this is having our hand rotate around the bowling ball. Now we need to rotate around the bowling ball for it to change direction further down the lane. So for this we'll have Jungo throw two different releases, one where he gets around the bowling ball and one where he rolls it completely end over end. And we'll notice the difference in ball reaction. So two completely different releases and two completely different results. The first one with his hand coming around the ball, hooked a ton. So the second one, rolling end over end, went right in the gutter. So the end over end roll went dead straight. It has no potential to change direction. This is why it's a good idea to rotate around the ball if you want to see that ball hook. So the last component is creating a time delay. So for the first shot, Jungo will create a time delay where his thumb comes out before his fingers. And for the second shot, the fingers and thumb will exit at the same time. So that's it for the one-handed release. We'll move on to the two-handed release with Jimoo.
Think fast.
All right, we're back with our two-hander, Jimoo. The process for hooking a bowling ball, very similar for a two-hander with some minor tweaks. So let's take a look at what those are. Now for the two-handers, it's a little bit easier to keep your hand underneath the bowling ball. That's because they have the second hand to help support it. So we'll do two shots again, one where Jimoo's hand is really underneath the ball, and the second one where his hand is not so much underneath the ball, maybe more behind the ball. As you can see with the first release, with his hand underneath the bowling ball, a lot more rev rate and a lot more hook overall. And for the second shot, his wrist was in a weaker position and he wasn't able to create the same amount of rev rate. So the second part is rotating around the bowling ball. Now for two-handers, this is a little more difficult based on the position that their shoulders have to be in on release. So with the shoulders closed, they tend to roll the ball more end over end on release. Like we do with Jungo, we'll have Jimoo throw a ball where he rotates around the ball and one where he rolls it end over end. And we'll see the difference in ball reaction. So as you can see on that first shot, with Jimoo getting around the ball, he hooked the whole lane and picked off the 7-pin. And on the second shot, even though he knocked all the pins down, significantly less hook. Now finally, the last part we talked about with Jungo, having the thumb clear before the fingers. Now, obviously Jimoo here doesn't use his thumb, so it's going to be a little bit different. So for two-handers, they use their non-bowling hand to control the release point. So that non-bowling hand sort of acts like the thumb. So for two-handers, that hand needs to come off before the fingers roll through the ball. No different than a thumb for a one-handed bowler. So let's see an example of this. In the first shot, the hand will come off early and the fingers will roll through the ball. And for the second shot, we'll have both hands kind of come off the ball at the same time. So on that first one, Jimoo gets his non-bowling hand off early and rotates around it, and is easily able to hook the lane. And on the second one, with his non-bowling hand on the ball much longer, he has to overcompensate by turning his shoulders through the ball, and it's a less than ideal release. So as you can see, with the hand underneath the ball, it gives us many more options to try and turn that ball. With the hand on the side or coming around the ball too early, we're very limited in what we can do with the foul line on release. So thank you, Jimoo, for being a good demonstrator. We'll bring Jungo back